saying a lot of Marshall.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
don't know, Marcia came in while all the stuff was still on.
Yeah.
So it's still new.
She wanted to see your pictures.
All right, there we go.
Marcia's still on the.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so, we only have one computer today, so I'm going to be sitting down and relaxing and having a good time being with friends. So, can you all hear me? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I've got the microphone, but, my voice is, I can really yell, but I want to say one thing before we get started, and that is I'm going to second what Felicity said about volunteering. And
If you can use the mic, it would be good.
You want all the way out like that?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
Okay.
well, put it, yeah, because I'll be going down.
mainly because that's going to be picking up.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Volunteering is critical to our club. And if we don't have volunteers, we don't have a club. That's kind of the bottom line. So, I agree with Felicity. Even the little things count in the club. So please, I'm looking out at the faces and I see a lot of people who volunteer with the group. But we really need to reach out to others who want to go on journeys and would like to come to the dinners and things to volunteer. I'm a very strong introvert, and yet I'm standing up here talking. Yeah, that's something I've learned over the years. And it's very difficult for me to go up to people and talk with them if I don't know them. So my way to overcome that has always been to volunteer, because if you get involved, the people you work with become your friends, and it makes it a whole lot easier. So it's, that's just one tip I've learned over the years. And if I could get other introverts to step out and do that too, I think it'd be great. So that's my sales pitch today. And that's not my elevator speech. Although I do use it's like, what's yours, Paula? It's like, exchange students I'd say for adults, and then I go off on the spiel about all the things that we do. So, okay. So I'm going to transfer to Dayton, nickname Birthplace of Flight, and talk about the trip, our outbound trip to Dayton. It was my first outbound trip. I've been part of the club for 5 or 6 years now, and it got more involved when I retired. And this, with COVID, was my first outbound trip. So it took place May 18th through 25th, and there are a lot of people that said they wanted to go, and then it turned out that there were only 6 of us from our club that went. We had 10, we had 11, but one's granddaughter, daughter had a baby, and she needed to be with her daughter at that time. So, and 4 of those people that went are in the room right now. So it was the Coopers, and I'm doing this blank thing, so Kathy, thank you. I'm looking right at her. I know this woman. So, and Marcia, who's online, and Mary Latham. So the 6 of us went from the club, and we had 4 other people. We actually had 12 signed up, and the 11th person was Teresa Wilkin. Yeah, and she unfortunately came down and was told she had COVID the day she was supposed to fly in. Or come in. She had been in Cincinnati visiting her cousin or her niece. So she ended up spending the week there before she could go home. And we had Barb Delgado, who is from the Sarasota group, and she was a lot of fun. And we had Susan Newhart, which is from Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. And she was pretty quiet, but she had a great sense of humor and very enjoyable to be with. And her specialty was having a Christmas tree farm. So that was kind of interesting. And she's not on the line, so I'm going to say this. We always have to have a character. You know, in a group, there's always a character or two. And that was Elaine Davis. She is an artist from Missoula, Montana. And she is just one of those. She's definitely the artistic mind. She is just not with everybody else. But she was delightful to be with. She had just fallen before she came on the trip. And so her home host, who will be our outbound JC, he and his wife had her, and they were wonderful. They got wheelchairs for her. They did special things for her, and she just thought she lived it up for the week. It was great. She's just always cheerful, always fun to be with. And then the other one was Diane Malone, who is from Washington, and she's a friend of Teresa's, and she also was a real delight, just out there and involved with everything. So when it says Friendship Force, it's World of Friends, it definitely is. These people are great. All our home hosts were so much fun and really nice. And most of them said they really would like to come to Dallas in the fall. So I look forward to having them here. So let's get into Dayton and the trip. I'm losing my voice already.
One second, I'm sorry, everybody. I've already talked to Gary, Mr. Jason from Dayton. He's already got 12 people signed up.
That's wonderful.
Good.
4 couples and 4 single ladies.
Good.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Well, we're all gonna have a good time. They're just fun people. But they don't drink a lot. I mean, they had no problem with, other people having a drink, but not like we were overindulging, but yeah, that's true too. Okay. So, oh, thank you, forgot to do that. Testing. Okay,
And then just use the right arrow.
yeah,
Or-
okay. I'm gonna use the mouse.
Okay.
I'm a mouse. I like animals. Okay. I know y'all talk to, there I am, that's my adopted Texan. Y'all talk to friends outside of Friendship Force. And I said, I am so excited. I'm going on a Friendship Force trip to Dayton. And they all looked at me and they're going, to Dayton? Why do you want to go to Dayton? And I'm from the Detroit area. So I went home. Dayton was very much, a little bit more rural than where I grew up. I grew up in the suburbs, but the people and the mentality and the energy there was very much where I grew up. So I was really comfortable with it. Plus, being the journey coordinator and talking with Kathy, the inbound coordinator, I knew we were going to do so many different things. That would be a lot of fun. So I was real excited about it. But I'm going to do a little sales pitch on Dayton first. So why Dayton? Why is Dayton important into the US? Well, it is a US crossroads. Two major US interstates cross in Dayton. And why Dayton? Because Dayton is close to Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, right straight down from Detroit. And it has traffic and business and commerce coming in from all over. So Ohio has always been a manufacturing state. There are manufacturers located everywhere, from Lake Erie up on the north, with so many boats coming in and out. The trucking industry, a big logistics hub. There's automotive plants in there and all types of engineering. So it's also the Air Force Base, the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And of course, we'll talk more about that because it's a city of flight. But because of the Air Force Base, there's a lot of defense, not necessarily manufacturing, but it's more engineering there, and lots of different technology hubs. So Ohio, and that's why it's so important to the political side, is that there's so much manufacturing and critical industry in Ohio that a lot of politicians want to go there. And a lot of service and healthcare. Their healthcare, I forget what study it was, but it's like number 3 in the nation. Just the quality of their hospitals. So all those things wrapped together make for a really good place to go. But is that good for tourists? So, and then the other point is, why did Ohio become this big manufacturing hub? What made it so special? So we asked why. And it really comes down to who is living there and the geographical. It is at the center of 4 great rivers, which started their transportation. People would come, Native Americans would go up and down all the rivers. It was great, it's rocky, but great farmland, very fertile farmland. And it was just as kind of a central meeting place. First for Native Americans, starting back about 2,500 years ago. And then later for Americans, a lot of Revolutionary War people traveled up and down. We had all the trappers and things that went across, the explorers. And then the first town was founded in 1796. It was primarily a farming community, but the industrial side really took off because of all the waterways there. And back then, it was so difficult to go over land that water was the primary route for shipping anything. So in the 1830s, Cincinnati wasn't near any major river that ran into this. So they built a canal, and that canal really got a lot of traffic and became much more built up Cincinnati, and created more and more industry, and more people moved in there. And then of course, we got the Wright Brothers, but before then, the National Cash Register company was established. So, that was big business because all the retail stores wanted a cash register. And the guy, John Patterson, wasn't the creator, but he was a great businessman and really pushed the businesses and things. He became a really good friend of the Wright Brothers. And together in the Wright Brothers, as you know, and we'll get into more, got their flight up at Kitty Hawk in 1905. So flying became business. And by 1917, the U.S. was talking about, because, you know, the war, it was part of the war, the U.S. wanted to create an air hub in Northern Virginia because it was closer to Kitty Hawk. So Patterson and the Wright brothers and other leading industrialists in the Ohio area got together and purchased a lot of land from the original flying field, and that became the U.S. Training and Tech Center, which it still is for the Air Force today. It's a major technology hub and training center at the Air Force. They have their university there. So the importance only grew with started with World War I and it grew in World War II. And it put down there the Dayton Project. And I didn't really learn anything about the Dayton Project until a couple days later when we went to the Carolyn Center. It's anybody been to Greenfield Village? Okay, Henry Ford bought some land and purchased what he considered famous historic buildings around the country and moved them to Greenfield Village because he was collecting them actually for his wife, but he was interested in that. Carolyn Park is very similar. They have purchased a number of important Ohio buildings and moved them there. Actually, Greenfield Village has the original Wright Brothers bicycle shop. They have a replica at Carolyn Park. So, but the Dayton Project, you've heard of the Manhattan Project? Dayton Project was a very important arm of that because of NCR. NCR helped build the first type of Enigma machine in the US. So they were very important in that part. We had our own code breakers working here in the US. You all heard about what was going on in England. And this all has come out in the past 20 years or so. Everything that actually took place. So I found that pretty interesting because that nobody, still doesn't talk that much about it. So another problem is you have all this water coming into Dayton and you have floods. Well, in 1913, they had a huge flood and it was a real problem because as you see where the blue is, that is where the majority of the flooding took place. And that is the center of town. And a lot of the major companies were located there. And the water went up like 15, 20 feet in the center of town. There were people lost, in just huge damage. They did have a levee system, but it failed. So after they got everything cleaned out, NCR was very important in sending in people, building boats, and helping with the reconstruction to rebuild the city afterwards. But what came out of it was with all the technology and all the manufacturing around, they created the first flood control system. And this was duplicated then throughout the US in flood areas. So the whole levee system was, built. In the late 1800s, Ohio led the nation in the number of patents. I'm fascinated with all this, so you're like going, but I found it really interesting, so I'm just gonna blather on here, so, we'll get to all different kinds of things. But I'm just fascinated with technology and transportation and things, because it is so key to who we are as Americans, that, to me, I was fascinated to find out all these facts about Ohio and Dayton. I come from the home of autos, so I know about the auto industry, but I just found this very interesting. Okay, so enough of that. That's why Dayton's so important. So now to Friendship Force Dayton. So here we are the first night, and we get to this kind of like a public country club, and we had a potluck dinner and met a lot of that people. And at the dinner was a group of folk dancers, and the Dayton folk dancers. So they cleared away all the tables afterwards, and many, I won't say most of us, many of us got up and danced. So, let me click on this. Oh, the volume's not on. Oh, too bad. Okay. So we're out there doing, that's a good thing. I'm in the back there. Kathy's out here too. Marcia, I think, is in on this one. Yeah, as you can see, nothing was really rousing, but the steps were kind of a little complicated, and there was a lot of laughing going on. So, but we ended early, and the reason why is there was a lot to see in the week. So here is our schedule of every day. So you can see that it is a busy week, and on top of it, nothing was in the same place. We did a lot of driving. You think you drive a lot around Dallas? You didn't see nothing. We were everywhere. I mean, we had people that were out like in Rockwall, and just like here, Rockwall, Louisville, South Dallas, you name it. And we were driving everywhere. It was like going back and forth almost to mid-cities or Fort Worth every day. And during the day, we were driving. So we spent a lot of time in cars, but it was a lot of fun. So the first stop on Friday was a place called Hawthorne Hill. And we've got our first breath of Wright Brothers fever. Hawthorne Hill is a house that the Wright Brothers designed and built, and was built, I think, in 1912. It was opened in 1914. It was designed in 1912. And it was designed by both of the Wright brothers and their sister Catherine, who doesn't get mentioned a lot, but I don't think the Wright brothers would be as successful if it hadn't been for Catherine, and they recognize it. So it's quite a nice house. It isn't that large. It was a home for the brothers, but unfortunately Orville died before he could move in. He caught typhoid fever on a trip, and he passed away before then. So Wilbur and Catherine moved in, and this is a picture down below here of the two of them out in the yard. And this little dog, Saint Bernard, you can see how little he is named Scipio. And as you can tell, they love that dog. And they never had another dog after that. He was so much a part of the family. But I just thought that was a really cute, and it was a cute dog. Huge, but so it really was a family home. They did a lot of entertaining in there because they were part of the social and business heart of Dayton. So, and Catherine was the one who took care of all the social responsibility. Both of the men never married. They were pretty reclusive. They could talk among friends and things, but they had a very hard time socializing and things. So Catherine took over that. She also ran the business while they did traveling to Europe to sell their planes and work with engineers and things in other countries. So she was critically important to the Wright brothers. Unfortunately, she was, well, I don't know, I can't say unfortunately, she devoted her life to her brothers until her 50s, when a man who she knew when she was at college, she ran into him and they had a long distance writing relationship, and his wife passed away and they started seeing each other and eventually decided to get married. But it took Catherine 6 to 8 months to tell Wilbur that she was going to get married, and he stopped talking to her, and they never talked again until her deathbed. So he was just so mad because she was his mouthpiece. She was his backup, his support. You know, actually she was like his wife, except it was, you know, but that was very typical back in those days, that, you know, women stayed and took care of the family. They took care of their dad in the house too before he passed away. That's just what families did. So I thought that was kind of interesting hearing that side, because you hear all the great things about the family. So it's interesting to hear the personal. Another cool thing is this picture up here. This is a picture on the White House steps. So you see Catherine's there. So Catherine was managing all the meetings and everything, and she made sure her brothers showed up. My kudos to Catherine. Okay, so the second stop, but the other important part of Friendship Force is eating. So we went over to Carillon Park, which is this little mini greenfield village in Dayton. And lo and behold, they had a brewing company. And we had lunch at the brewing company. And it was a really great lunch. The food was good. We sat outside, weather was perfect. And this is a reconstruction of an actual brewery that was in the architecture of the original breweries. So it gave you a feeling of what the breweries were like back in the late 1800s. So it also kind of got you in the mood of going to Carillon Park and going back in time. So this is Carillon Park. And as I said, there's all kinds of buildings here. This is, it is not the original airplane of the Wright brothers. It is a reconstruction, but the materials used in this plane actually came from Wright brothers planes. The wings and the struts and all that were actually pieces from different planes that they had, because they did a lot of crash landings. So there are a lot of extra parts left over. But they have little statues of both the Wright brothers here in the back. And it was just a kind of a moving tribute to the flight. And this is the bicycle shop that they had. This was where they got their money to do all their experiments. And then while they were off in Kitty Hawk doing all their fun, I put in a plug for Catherine. She kept the bicycle shop going. She was the business manager. So there's a lot of other things here in Carolyn Park. This was the original inn, Newcomb Inn, because every stagecoach and thing needed to have inns for people. So this was the original inn. They have a locomotive that they reconstituted, and it goes around the park, and we rode that. That was kind of fun. And then another thing that I thought, what do you think this is? What does it look like?
Toll bridge.
It's actually living quarters of waves, and that is Navy women during World War II. They had over 400 waves living in the Dayton area, and what do you think they did? Pardon?
They volunteered, I think, didn't they, or did they pay?
Oh, they paid them because they were waves. So they put them up. They worked on the Dayton project. They were the coders and the women who ran all the offices and did all the work. So that's why they needed 400 of them. Yeah. So, and this is where I found out about the code, about the Dayton code. So we go in there and it's, it is an actual cabin from that era, and it's set up for 4 waves to live in, and they had a whole series of cabins in a little camp for all the waves. So it is just another interesting fact in Dayton, and just kind of, you think that here in the middle of the Midwest in farmland and manufacturing, that they had this technology center where they were working on the atomic bomb and also working on the coding in World War II. This is kind of interesting. So a fun place. We went there in the afternoon. And then in the evening, we went to the Wegerson Gardens and the Dayton Playhouse. We all wanted to go see the play. We saw Meet Me in St. Louis, which was very, very well done. It's kind of a local performers, but it was well done. And the gardens were absolutely beautiful. Everything was beginning the wisteria. I was like the flowers that hang down. The wisteria were blooming and things, and it was just a really nice way to end the day. Well, we had to get to bed early because first stop was Annie Oakley in the Garst Museum. So we got in our cars and we drove out to a small town. Took about, I don't know, for you guys it took longer. Yeah, the Coopers were out a bit, were quite a ways away. And the Garst Museum was full of it was not very large. It was homes converted to a museum. But Annie Oakley grew up in that county, and so they created this museum of a lot of her artifacts. And you would think that Annie Oakley was what we would call a cowgirl, rough around the edges and anything. She wasn't. She was very ladylike, and all her things were very feminine. But yet she was a fantastic shot. So here, they had all kinds of showcases of different things in her life. She was very petite. They said 5 foot, but I don't think she was 5 foot. And they had a measurement to show how tall she would have been. And then have y'all seen the movie? Annie, Get Your Gun and all of that, with Frank Butler? So Frank was also a sharpshooter and a very good shot. So they met in a competition and Annie outshot Frank. But he liked her, she liked them. They eventually got married and he stopped shooting and became her promoter. And they went on to go into the Wild Bill show for many years. And that's how they made their money. They never had any children, but they had a lot of their family that would come in and visit with them and things. But, I said I'm an animal lover, so here's their little dog. And he would sit up on this stool, here, he'd sit up here, and Annie put an apple on his head and she'd shoot it off. So that was just part of showing her skill. No, and you think about it, this is not a wide distance. So, but then the rifles weren't as accurate as they are now. But they, again, loved this dog and lived with him for a number of years, with both of them. But the Garth Museum also had some interesting things in it. They had a collection of memorabilia and things, and they set up like a little village inside. So here we have a telegraph office and like a drugstore and a beauty salon, which was kind of interesting. And anybody remember what this is?
Mangle.
A mangler, an ironer. My next door neighbors had one. And then I really liked this little motorcycle from the 1950s. Then we were on to eating at Buffalo Jack's. This was an interesting restaurant. We had a private room with our own buffalo. This is Kathy and Art Barnes, my host. And here's Buffalo Jack back here. And you can see all the Native American things here. And they had some statues and things. And it was just a fun time. Then we were off again to see the trolls at Allwood Audubon Center. And these are not the trolls. Although we might have felt that way towards the end of the trip. We were intrepid adventurers. But the trolls were out in the middle of the Audubon Center, and you had to hike to get to see them. So here we are in the afternoon. We'd already, gone, driven out, tromped through the museum, had a big lunch, and now we're going to see the trolls. So there's 3 trolls, and they were all in the woods, in the forest, except for Bibi, and she was out on a hill. So here's Bo. This is Bo the dad, and he's over a creek in the middle of the woods. And you can see how big he is. He's sitting down, and that is his foot right there. So this is Bobil. That's the mom. And this is Bibi. And the gentleman who created these is a Danish man. And he does these installations all around the world. They're made out of recycled materials, and he creates the plan. He manufactures, or kind of sculpts out of wood the heads. And local people put the rest of it together, and then he comes in for the final assembly. And they are absolutely wonderful. And people were thinking, why are we going to go see this? But actually the trolls were, I'd say, the surprise hit of the trip. That not everybody was able to get to them or to all of them, because as I said, some of them were through, you had to hike through rough trail to get to them. So they didn't see all of them. But the thing I like most about it are the expressions on the faces. Bo looks like he's daydreaming or just glad to be sitting in the woods alone. And Beauville is looking at this little container, which she thinks is an egg. They see an airplane going ahead and they think it's an egg from the airplane. But they created a nest and put these eggs in it, so the story goes. And there is a nest. I didn't hike over to take a picture of the nest. And they put these containers in there. But they sat on them, but they never hatched, obviously. And BB over on the left only knew the forest, but she saw the birds and she saw the plane go over. So she decided to build wings and fly. So she did. So she is up on the top of the hill and she's going to run down and fly, which she did. But she discovered that airplanes weren't alive. And she didn't like what she saw when she got up there. So she went back to the forest. No comment. So that was a lot of fun. We had a good time out there. And then we had our first small dinner. And I was very fortunate to go out to the English Garden Farm, which was, this is our host here in the middle. You can see that the Coopers went out there too. And this gentleman, I can't remember what his name is, created a fabulous buffet for us. And he is a really great cook. And then we just sat around in the evening and drank wine and ate food and listened to him play. It was really and talked with each other, did a lot of talking. It was just a really enjoyable, comfortable evening. Yeah, the garden was beautiful, very large. It was farmland when they took it over, and they were going to open a nursery, but just then Home Depot and Lowe's and that came in with their garden centers, and it never really took off. So they do it now for their own love of it, and it is absolutely beautiful. So we were very lucky to get out there. I gotta talk really fast. Okay, back to the Wright Brothers. Yeah, we got to be out of here by 3:40. Yeah.
3:45.
Yeah. So this is Huffman Flying Field. Huffman Prairie was the original place where the Wright brothers took their planes and took off. So it is part of Wright-Patterson Air Base now. And there's a big memorial across the freeway from there. And we spent the morning up there, took pictures. And then we went over to the National Museum of the Air Force. And how many people have been there? Okay. It is 5 hangars full of planes and all accoutrements associated with flying. So engines, the technical side, rockets, equipment, cars, you name it, they have that in the museum. So they have World War I. This is, the German side, right here. This is a bomber, believe it or not. Here's their aircraft here. And in typical flying uniform of World War I. And they have rotating exhibits too, so they can move in and out a lot of things. World War II Europe. So the Memphis Belle, which was a bomber, and then this is a British Spitfire. It was fun to be up close. You know, I've seen so many World War II movies growing up. It was fun to see them up close and personal. In World War II South Pacific, this is the B-29 bomber, one of the big famous ones, particularly of the the South Pacific Theater. And then here is what I always envision as a kamikaze plane type, small and very fast, and so, but both were very effective. So the end of the World War II, this is the actual bomber that dropped Little Fat Man on Nagasaki. So the plane is there. This is a replica of the bomb. And this is an actual photograph of the detonation. And Dayton played a part in the technology to get this up, the atomic technology. So another one of the hangars was focused on the post-Cold War, and I was enamored of the spy planes. I don't know how these things fly. It's just amazing to me. So as you can see, and I like this car too with the wings. So, and you can go in some of them. They had a lot of presidential jets, and it was fun to go into each one of them and see, starting with the older one, and see how the technology changed with each president. And Mamie Eisenhower had her own room on the jet with, big makeup mirror and, cozy chair and things just for her. They didn't have that in all the planes. So we had another small dinners that night, went to a different place. Kathy and Art hosted, so we had people come. That was a lot of fun too, because we had a picnic and we sat outside. Oh, let me give a little plug for small dinners. You don't have to cook for a small dinner. It's nice, but you can buy food and bring it in, because the goal is not to impress people with your cooking, but just for everybody to get together over food in a small group where the conversation is much better. And I think Dayton really got that, because most of the dinners weren't fancy. They were just, help yourself and let's just sit and talk and relax for a couple hours. So I really enjoyed that. I have no idea what we do. I've only been to one small dinner, so. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really good. So the next day, on Monday, we got up, got in our cars, and went driving quite a ways to another county and to see 5 different covered bridges. And I'm going to say, if you've seen one, you've seen most of them. It was very interesting, but I don't think I'd repeat that again. I'd go to see a couple of them, but is one bridge too little, or 5 too many? Yes. But it was fun. And we had a good time, and got a great shot of Mary and Julia. And then we went to the Glen Helen Raptor Center, where we got up close and personal with 3 raptors who were part of their educational group. This is a barn owl, this is a kestrel, and this is a hawk. And they are all rehabilitated birds. The goal is to get these birds back out in the wild, but oftentimes they have problems. You know, they don't heal correctly, or they get them too late and can't rehabilitate them and get them back out. So they keep them, and some of them they take to schools and things. So these 3 are the ambassadors for the Raptor Center, and they're absolutely beautiful. And you can tell she really enjoys her job. Then another fun thing is we went to the Packard Museum. This is the only Packard, there are a lot of Packard museums. This is the only one that is in an original Packard showroom and dealership. So the building, this is the building, and you can see these are the garage doors. And this is the service center. And the original cash register, I don't know if it's original, but it is with the times. It opened in 1906. And some old, you know, overalls and things, and original parts that they found and stocked up. So it was really fun being in there. But they had beautiful cars from 1906 to the 1950s when Packard closed their doors. They also had other cars than Packard's, a few, and they moved them, rotate them in and out. But it's a fun place. We spent quite a bit of time there because we all really enjoyed it. And this, I have to say, was my favorite car. It is just beautiful. Just, you know, you can just picture this movie star couple driving in this car someplace. Yeah, right. So here's a couple other cars. This lady wasn't in our group, but I just love this picture of her. This was like a sport, you know, boat tail speedster from 1930. And then this is a car that we could get in, and you can tell I'm having a good time. So that was a lot of fun. I have another great shot of Julia on the running board. So we really enjoyed it. And of course we ate. So this is the lady from our Christmas tree. Where's my mouse? Christmas tree lady. And this is Diane Malone with her home host, Sherry. Sherry? Yeah. Well, I don't think Sherry was her home host, but it was both their birthdays that day. So that was fun. And this is Jan Vivanco. And this is Jan's granddaughter, Paloma. And Paloma joined us, I think, on three or four of the days. And you can tell that she is getting into this crowd. She was very shy on the first day, but by this day, she warmed up to everybody. She was enjoying herself, especially because it was pizza day. And then we headed over to the Grotto Gardens at the VA Medical Center and Hospital. It's not the most modern one, but it is actually part of the VA property. It was established in 1867. It was a mid-central group called the Mothership, because after the Civil War, they had so many veterans who were injured in the war. They had to have and they didn't have any place to go, so they brought them to the VA center, And at one time, they had, a few thousand living there. Very interesting. So it was originally a limestone quarry and farmland, and they had buildings and things that they lived, but it was very much a part of the community because the veterans were really honored by everybody for everything that they contributed during the Civil War. Okay, so they created this grotto. This is an old time photo of it, and this is all created and built and tended by the veterans. Nowadays, it's volunteers that do it, but again, beautiful. Then we went to the Sunwatch Indian Village. This is a drawing. This is what it actually looks like right now. This is when it got started. They've done archaeological exhibitions, and this is several of us pooped in sitting here. So it was that day was a warm day. So we are glad to be sitting inside. So they created this about 800 years BC. Then Wednesday we got up and went to Frank Lloyd Wright's house. He created the Westcott House for the Westcotts, 1905-06 time period. Beautiful place, very well reconstruction. They weren't all original pieces of furniture, but they did reconstructions of it, and it's just a showpiece now. Part of all of Frank Lloyd Wright's. I have to say the Hartman Rock Garden was probably the quirkiest, other than the trolls, the quirkiest of anything. This was a guy who during the Depression was laid off from his job, and he needed to do something, so he created this garden behind their house, and quite a large garden. But this is all pebbles and twigs and things, and he built all these small houses. And these two are my photos here, and this is one I got from their website. But he had these little figures in here, and it was just, I didn't really like it, but reading about it and stuff, it's really it's interesting, and it kept him busy. So kept him really busy, and when he passed away, his wife kept it up until 1997, and it went into decline, and the city took it over, and now they get thousands of visitors every year to see it. We went in the spring, so it wasn't really beautiful, but apparently in the summer, from the photos, I think it's beautiful with lots of flowers. And then we ended the day driving again to Wilberforce University, which is the first Black university in the U.S. And it was built with the support of businessmen in Ohio, white businessmen in Ohio, to train African American youth in business fields and other fields to support their industries. So to build the workforce. And they had a fabulous, the university did a lot of collecting of African American memorabilia and things to support their history, and created the African American Museum there, and it became national, and they were very important in helping to build the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. They have a bigger collection than the Washington. And they have sent some things there on loan. So it was very interesting to be there and hear about it. So I gotta really get on. So we come to the last place we went to, which is the Miamisburg Mound. It is a 65-foot high burial mound of the Native Americans that were living in that area, which were the forebears of the Native Americans that we knew when Americans came across the Midwest. So here's the group saying goodbye on the hill. And several of us hiked up to the top. It's quite a ways. It was a little windy up there. And this is a nondescript office building across the street that held the Manhattan project. I mean, the Dayton project. So you just look at it and think it's just an office building, but it was not. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
So what did it include? We can look at that.
I'm not sure which part of the atomic bomb, yeah. So, because of the manufacturing in the area, they manufactured it too. So, but that's something that you can Google.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's special on it, too.
so then our farewell dinner with lots of happy faces, lots of hugging, good food, and then we said goodbye. And this was, Art and Kathy both have their own cars. This is Art's car. It's a 62 MGA. And we drove home from the farewell dinner in it. And Kathy has a 65 or 67 Thunderbird convertible. So it was a wonderful time. We really had a great time. So any questions? Go to Dayton, you'll enjoy it.
Lots of driving.
Lots, yeah, well, yeah,
And they'll be here in October.
yeah. So, and I don't think we need to be quite as busy, but, it'll be a fun time. It was a very fun group. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb. Edward, what do you need us to do? Because we've got 5 minutes to be out of here. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for coming. See you next. We'll see you next month. Come after.
We'll see you at the creek.
Oh, and I have some brochures on the table up there if you want, if there's anything you're interested. Please don't take them home, but.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.